Kleber Puchaski es el vicepresidente de Diseño de Producto de Adecco Group y fundador de Flutter Innovation, una red de apoyo a empresas en su transformación digital. Puchaski también es cofundador de REACH, la red global de investigación en diseño. Kleber cuenta con más de 20 años de experiencia, ha identificado los puntos de vista de los consumidores, desarrollando productos y servicios y estrategias para ellos. Ha trabajado con grandes marcas en empresas como ZEISS Group, Philips Design, Renault, Hyundai-Kia, Telefónica, Electrolux, HSBC y Bosch. Kleber tiene un máster en estrategia de diseño y marca por la Universidad de Brunel, en Reino Unido, y un doctorado en diseño de vehículos por el Royal College of Art de Londres. Entonces, todos están muy bienvenidos a esta conferencia. Welcome, Kleber.
Thank you. Thanks for the warm welcome. So it's a pleasure to be here and then share a little bit some stories on design and innovation, right, in all the topics in between. If I've got it right, so I do have about 45 minutes to share the things, and then we're gonna have a Q&A afterwards, right? So please don't be shy. So you can also put your questions on the chat, and I think Daniela and Valentina will help me out to organize, you know, the Q&A afterwards. Let me share the screen. So I'm going to share the entire desktop, so that makes things much easier for us. Good. Cool. It is a great pleasure to be here, right? So Angelica Lascat was the person that invited me. We've been together a couple of years ago when we did our masters back in London, and it's been years that we tried to find, you know, an agenda and an opportunity for us, you know, to exchange ideas and knowledge. So and then that's I'm quite honored to be here. So just to give you a little bit of the background. This is a timeline. I'm quite fascinated about timelines. But that's pretty much my design timeline, right? So it started in 1994. I've been working in the design field over the last couple of years, more than 20 years, and then I had an opportunity to collaborate with big corporations and consulting, being in the kind of a design entrepreneur, having my own company, and as well as with academic background, right? So it was pretty much a couple of years. I worked for HSBC, and then I moved to London when I did my master and my PhD. And after the PhD, I've decided to open up my design practice in Brazil, and after 8-9 years, I've went back to the corporate side, right? So I've been collaborating over the last 6-7 years with Philips, and then I moved to ZEISS, and today I'm vice president of digital design at Adecco Group. So I'm going to explain a little bit. I brought a little bit of some case from Philips, from different companies. But the idea today is to discuss those 3 big topics, right? To me, it's super important to balance, you know, the thinking and doing. But along the presentation, the next couple of minutes, I brought some case regarding the models of thinking in the digital world, the balance and how to foster the creative and rational thinking. So to me, it's super important to find the balance between those two. And what I've been, you know, more focused on my career over the last couple of years with the corporate side, building the digital design governance, right, which is pretty much a establishing design within big companies. Let's start with the design governance. So essentially, the design governance, it is a series of assets or practices, standards, guidelines, process everything that is related to design, that it is necessary to establish design at the core of companies that are kind of moving into the digital transformation. This is pretty much, you know, my definition of what design governance is all about, right? So it is, it supports pretty much, you know, the decision making with everything relates to design, as well as the way of working and the interaction between all the competences. It also helps to establish, you know, the team setup. It's really important to find the right competence and the collaboration between the competence within the team, and of course, and helps to set up the collaboration beyond the team, right, with all the stakeholders. So this is pretty much what I've done for Philips and then for ZEISS and now at Adecco. So it's helping companies to establish the design at core of their product development. But the whole story started, you know, more than 10 years ago when I've decided to stop my career and went back to the university to pursue and to connect some ideas and with the practice and the way that I've pursued my PhD was perceiving the PhD as an opportunity to build theory and practice all together, right? So if I could summarize one single sentence for the 80,000 words document, it is this paragraph, which says that the meaning of design moved beyond form and function. I came from, you know, the background with a design education that, you know, design is either form or function or both. But I think that's over the years, the way that design has been helping, you know, business and technology to move forward, design became more a way of thinking, right? So it is pretty much, you know, the group of people that facilitates a dialogue between technology, the business, and perhaps the most important element with this environment is the user, right? So building design that makes sense for the user as a centerpiece of this process. So, of course, the main topic for the entire field was all about the future, right? So the title, Fuel the Future, it is, of course, a provocation, you know, so because as a designer, you definitely have to be connected with what is happening in the future, right? So, and then this graphic is quite simple, but it's pretty much shows, you know, the possible futures that we have to deal with in a regular basis as a designer. So we always, you know, have to bring, you know, requirements or ideas, dreams and wishes from the users and connect with the visions and goals and plans. And then we have this opportunity to have those three possible futures, right? So one is the probable future, the future that is most likely to happen. It's something that we know that's, you know, every 4 years we have the World Cup, or every 4 years we do have the big events as the Olympics, for example. So then we know that we can predict, well, not predict, but we can be prepared for what is happening already, which is really about establishing the future, right? So I'm talking about sports event, but then we do have in the social and the cultural and environmental elements that is already placed in the future that we will face anyway, right? So this is pretty much most of the people are connected with what is already happening, right? So, but then we do have two very interesting perspectives on the future. One is the possible future, right? So we do have the imagination, so and then we can imagine the future and the possibilities that is out there, right? So all the potentials of all the options that we have available, so we can build the future with all the possibilities. And the third one is the preferable future, right? So it's pretty much lies on the dreaming side, right? So we can dream about the future. We can wish the best, of course, and then desire to have the future as we imagine, right? So to me, there's not kind of right or wrong, of course, but it's the combination of those three futures that makes life more colorful, right? So on the vertical axle, you can see the uncertainties. Of course, the probable future, usually say that that's 50-50, right? It can or may not happen. The possible future is the future that's perhaps if we planned or if we established goals and visions, so we might get there. And the preferable future is the future that's which pretty much wants us to build up our comfort zone, right? So that's a human nature, right? So we build things and trying to create this comfort zone, which is let's say the preferable and desired future. So of course then things are a little more complex than this very simple two axles matrix. So that's why those key elements on that the criteria and the impact and the interconnection between those, which is super important, right? So we do need to see things from the people, process, content, and context perspective, and the impact that's it will create on the economic side, on the social, cultural environment. So those are kind of very basic elements, but it helps, when you think about future, when you think about designing or building something, you definitely need to consider all those elements. So then you can, let's say, bring a little bit of more balanced approach to what is coming. With that background, with that, the thesis was, as I mentioned, the idea was not just kind of build an academic document and put it in the library. It was, I've landed all those ideas, and I've started my own company. When I've started it, I've used exactly the same title of the thesis, and it was Fuel the Future. And then over the years, things evolved. And Flutter Innovation, it is the company that I've created back in 2014, which is a networking enterprise, right? So back in 2014, it is the idea was to bring people together and across the globe and to work in different environments with different challenges, regardless, the country, the language, or so the idea is pretty much to create a community-based company. And the idea is again, the approach was to unify, the rational and creative thinking, imagining and building that. Whatever future the companies they're envisioning. So we've been fortunate enough to collaborate with big companies, with the small companies in Europe, in Brazil, across the globe, in Asia. So those are some of the key partners. We've been working extensively with Philips and Bev. In the past, we worked with Bosch. With Spotify, here and there, we always have some design research projects, and we're also part of a group of companies that we do design research at a global level. So we call REACH, the Global Design Research Network. I highly recommend you to check that out. It is 18 different studios across the globe and collaborating, doing design research for big companies and smaller startups as well. So that is a bunch of really nice, smart people that pursued and what comes the best in terms of design and innovation. So please check it out. So it's now research is Rich is promoting a new design research course, which is quite interesting to see, partners from all over the world sharing, the best practice in design research. Some of examples, some of projects that we've been involved over the years. As I mentioned, imagining the future. A couple of years ago with Renault, we helped them to envision, what would be the future of mobility, and help them to build the design briefing for emerging markets. So that was a really interesting project. Years later, we saw, some of the products that they launched for Brazil, India, and some of the emerging markets. So it was a huge in-depth research, design research that we've done in São Paulo, where we had, designers from France and Japan coming or going to Brazil, and we helped them to better understand what Brazil is all about, going beyond, of course, the stereotypes, right? So as you know, so usually companies use quite a lot of stereotypes to define products, which is we are not necessarily against, but then I think that we should bring what is underneath the stereotypes and what is the real elements of a particular country's culture. Another example of a highly complex project was Grupo Boticário, which is one of the biggest cosmetic company in Brazil. So they have more than 5,000 brands all over Brazil. So we started the project with one objective, but we end up, kind of analyzing the whole innovation life cycle from supplier and the factory distribution, sales, and up to the waste management, identifying opportunities and building what we call the migration path, which is pretty much the roadmap of ideas. And they've been using this roadmap over the last 5 years, landing initiatives and projects in different areas. So there was a really in-depth design research and working together with multiple stakeholders internally, and helping them to kind of unleash and to unlock, the innovation opportunities. Another good example is with Bosch. We helped Bosch to redefine an opportunity, an innovative product that they had. They had a raw material that was patented, and they were thinking on expanding their product line with motorbike accessories. And then again, we ran the whole design research and the innovation process together with them to figure out what would be the design principles for that product. So then we encapsulate those principles, and then our deliverables was essentially a huge report, not only of course a written report, but a visual report to support the design team to build that product up, right? So it was a really interesting project because we've been working pretty much kind of inside of a black box, right? So they had a couple of ideas, very few business structure or even the technology structure. So then we were helping them to facilitate this triangle between the user desires and dreams and the business opportunities and the technology that would come up into a product. So those are three just examples of what Flutter has been working on. So, but then I'd like to bring back, a little bit of the theoretical thinking behind all the projects and everything that we've been doing, right? So over the last 6-7 years, I've been personally really intrigued by the digital world, and then been working quite exclusively with the digital domain, and then and combining theories and concepts from the past, and then the digital design thinking, it's something that we always find ourselves discussing, right? So, and then if we deconstruct the idea of the digital design thinking, right? So, and then bringing all the definitions together, it is what's underlying our practice, right? So, if we looking into the digital concepts, I really like the conditional concept in the digital world, what we call the if this then that, right? So most of digital interactions relies on this concept, right? If you want to go to the next page, so then you have to hit that button, right? So or the binary zeros and one in sequence. So that helped us to bring some concepts and challenge the concepts with the basic definitions of what the digital world is all about. The second part is pretty much the core. That's what I've been discussing and doing over the last 20 years, which is design, right? So as you probably know already, multiple design definitions of what is design. So I really like one very simple definition that came from Paul Ewing, which is was my PhD supervisor. He said, well, whatever is not nature design, it's human-made things, then it's design, right? So everything that's it's produced by human beings, somehow it was planned, it was executed in a process, and we come up with something, right? So then that will help us to broaden up a little bit the notion of what design can do and what design can help organizations, companies, to build more sustainable and better products, right? So then it expands, our responsibility towards building a more sustainable future. And the third part, which is the thinking part, right? So you probably noticed over the years that design thinking became almost a jargon, right? So what the business and the companies have been using these to establish design, to bring design more to the central conversation. But very little is discussed, how the thinking process happens, right? So which is pretty much the process of reasoning. So again, I'm not going to be super theoretical here, but please check it out. The three types of the reasoning system, which is the deductive, the inductive, and the abductive, right? Which is essentially that's pretty much the way that we think, or sometimes it's the very basic explanation in terms of cognition, the psychology of cognition, when people are more forward thinkers or more conservative, or so it's pretty much what guides us, our process of thinking, right? So why I'm telling you all about these ones? So because for us, not only at Flutter, but then with my team at Adecco, I'm always provoking, the practice of design through the thinking, or sometimes the other way around, right? So the process of thinking through the practice. One thing that was to me years ago in 2007, there's this article from a guy called Kevin Kelly. I'm also suggest you to follow him. So on whatever social media that you're in. So Kevin Kelly, it is he's the founder of the Wire magazine. So, and then 2007 he put an article out there and with a question or a provocation, is saying that the World Wide Web is only 5,000 days old, which is 13, 14 years, right? So that was 2007. And the World Wide Web, it was invented by, I forgot the name. It will come, right? So it was in 1994 when, so that's the image of the first ever page live on the web. And then Kevin Kelly, he was questioning, the impact of the web on our lives, right? And in every single topic that we in our existence, in only 5,000 days, it was amazing to see how this new technology it's impacting our lives. And then he was questioned back in 2007, what's going to happen, in the next 5,000 days. Oddly enough, so we are 5,000 days ahead, so in 2022. And then another article that he put it out, so questioning, the web as a copy machine. So it's interesting to see that it's still a super valid discussion, even 14 years onwards. So the image that you see here, it is from Bipul Krab. So he's a digital artist, and he's been developing one piece of art, as he describes, over the last 5,000 days. Every day he put something out there. And of course, with the NFT, he's one of the gazillionaires or millionaires or billionaires selling NFTs with digital art. So I also suggest you to check it out. So it was something that was unimaginable 5,000 days ago, or even 10,000 days ago. But then there's so many other possibilities out there with this piece of technology. If we bring this conversation more towards the business side, right? So, which is in bringing into the innovation life cycle, the product development life cycle. This is a kind of very generic life cycle for product development, and I really like, I can spend hours using this one and to bring different conversations, but I really like the idea that the eureka moment, the moment that we have a unique idea that's you have to be conscious on protecting the intellectual property, or sometimes the business strategy of a new objective or key results, and then it turns into a product definition, and then whatever is the approach. It could be agile, waterfall, but in design it's just one, perhaps not even the biggest part of the product development, but we as designers, we are in charge pretty much to making the connection between the business ideas, or the business and the ideas with the development, regardless if it's digital or physical, right? But then with the user center in mind, we can drive that conversation until, of course, not only launching new, better, and sustainable products, but also maintaining the life cycles and of revamping projects. So the companies, whatever company that you consider the most innovative ones, they've been using this structure over and over again, right? So and this is nothing new. It came from a book called The Diffusion of Innovation, especially the second part, from product launch. And so it was Everett Rogers in the early 60s that created this bell curve with innovators, early adopters, late adopters. So which is pretty much defines pretty much the way of thinking, or the way that people interact with business and buying products, and so it is quite, if you're a designer, so please make sure that you get acquainted, you get to know a little bit more, how this structure of from the idea up to the product development until the end of the product life cycle. So this is something that it is kind of a must-have for a designer to get to know more and more in depth about the product life cycle. Back to Kevin Kelly. So he put another article out there questioning the web, the ability of being innovative on the web, right? Because everything that you put out there on the web, it's easily it can be easily copied, right? So then with this line of thinking here, so if copies are super abundant, they become worthless, right? So everything that's it is multiplied, it is out there, it lacks the value, right? So and then the other thing that the web promotes is everything is free. We have this feeling that everything is on the web, it is free of charge, which is not necessarily true. But then how companies can make money out of it if you don't see the value, right? So and the question is that what's out there that cannot be copied, right? So and then he put this what he calls generative, so the things that it's uncopyable values, right? So of course on top of those 8 elements are trust, right? So you cannot copy trust. So that's why usually when building products, if you focusing on building the trust, you're pretty much creating something fairly unique for your brand or your product line. But then there's a couple of elements here of those, that list of generatives that is still super valid even today, right? Almost 15 years onwards. The immediacy, it is a quite interesting concept. So Amazon has been using this extensively, right? So you can you buy something in the digital world, and then you can wait for a week. But then if you want, they can deliver this tomorrow morning for you, right? So you're going to pay premium for that, that's for sure. But then you know, the numbers shows, right, that people are paying premium for getting things immediately, right? So time is money, as you know, and then people are definitely investing on cut corners and make sure that we can get whatever you want at the time that we want. So there's some other concepts that strongly suggest, you know, if you're developing a product, please check those concepts and see if you can add value to your product or product line by using, you know, the interpretation, which is also something quite interesting. You see today lots of people putting out there the how to build something or promote something. So yeah, the YouTube is definitely the channel where people are getting monetizing, you know, by making interpretation of something that is out there, right? So it's interesting to see that we create layers of and consuming knowledge through the lens of somebody else. So it's anyway, but my preferred one is the findability, the last one, right? So if you building something, right? So if you're building a product and helping people to find things, it is quite interesting to see that this concept is being proved that again, people pay premium to pay someone to find something, right? So those portals where I'll give you an example. If you're looking for insurance, right? So then you have a portal that can find the right insurance for you, or you put your profile, and the middleman can help you to figure out what is the best product based on your profile. There are lots of companies out there. So travel agencies are good examples of this generative practice. But then, of course, we are building things for people, right? And people, the human centricity, it's a highly desirable approach for most of companies around the world. So all the designers, of course, if you're building something, if you're designing something, you have to have someone in mind. But then we live in a period of time where society is information rich, but time poor, as I mentioned, right? So we pay premium for our time, and we do need to find a more systemic approach, because people are not that easy to figure out and understand, you know, how do people operate, because we are highly complex people, right? We work in highly complex environments and so on. So, and then as a designer, we always try to figure out, the combination of what do people think, what people feel, and what people do. And most of the times, those three elements are not aligned, right? What people think is not necessarily the way that they are feeling or the way that they are doing, right? So it's really hard to pin, a really set of criteria on building products, because people are definitely moving. They are moving targets, as I call it. So that's why I'm always provoking the teams that I'm leading to bring the triple I on top, right? Just trying to listen to your intuitions and get other sources of inspirations rather than just kind of collect, pre-cooked elements from the internet. Trying to approach people and having a conversation. Sometimes it's not about the numbers and the quantitative approach, but the qualitative approach, and then trying to figure out ways that you can figure by yourself rather than just getting the trained reports or Google elements as source of inspiration, right? And then perhaps the most important one is the imagination, right? So as I mentioned, right, information rich and time poor, most of the time we try to cut corners and try to figure out elements that are out there that can inspire us, rather than develop your own imagination, your own ideas, and pursue those ideas moving forward. Especially because if we are set to build an authentic product, an authentic service, so you will need, to bring those three elements all together, right? The intuition, the inspiration, and the imagination. Here's some examples of how I've applied this over the years. Building design systems, you always trying to balance, the modularity and the configurability structure. So identifying what are the personas, what is the mental model when people are looking for information, and what is the narrative, right? So those three big elements, it helps, to define, a better approach, or the approach that is more desired by the end user, right? So this is a schema that we developed for ZEISS for their website. So the whole website is fully modular. So then sometimes the same content, but applied with a different narrative, it creates, a different reading system, a different flow within the site, right? So then sometimes the same content it is perceived in a more emotional way, or they want to convey a different communication level, or more informational, or sometimes in that case for ZEISS, a more scientific approach. It requires, a better balance of all the assets, digital assets available within the design system. The other thing is keeping on the people's topic, right? So it's this is a matrix that I've been polishing every new team, new project, and trying to figure out what is the best way of building high performance teams, right? So I'm always trying to combine, the expertise, the profiles, and mindset. So in some cases, some challenge requires more the expertise, right? So the expertise of designers to think about the business behind the idea, or sometimes designers that needs to interact with other designers, or harmonizing the assets across, or sometimes designers that needs to work together with the technology or the development teams. And then although the market, and sometimes even people, they label themselves with profiles, UX designer, UI designer, usability. To me, it is the most important part is the mindset, right? Because the profiles are pretty much hard skills based, right? And hard skills, you can buy it, you can train. But when it comes to mindset, which is pretty much the softer skills, that is a little bit more. Of course, we can build, we can twist, you can change your mindset, but as the mindset belongs to the inner circle mentality, so that is way more challenge for the people to jump from imaginative to analytical or to alignment. So we always have a more, let's say, a strong a pending way of working when it comes to the mindset, right? So the teams that I've been building over the years, it is pretty much a combination of the expertise, the profiles, and the mindset. But it's still, of course, in the making. That's not. This is not kind of a fixed framework of building teams, but it's something that I've been using always in building the team. So here at Adecco, it's been a year that I've been building the team. So this has been super useful in this process. Another element on the digital design domain, it is building assets, right? The modularity is something really important, building products bottom up, right? So the smallest element that we have on the screen is a pixel. So then if you put pixels together, you have, a couple of elements like colors, fonts, which is I call the foundation. And then if you get the foundations together, you have some components, and if you get components together, models, and so on and so forth, until you have the whole system built, right? So this approach, what I call the experience architecture, is something that I've been developing since Philips' time, and then I've been using the same, similar, the same approach, but with different, of course, terminologies, or different structure, because of course it's heavily dependent on the tech stack, on the technology stack that is available, right? But then it's been already proved quite successful for the design team to build, the library of assets, and then first, and then start building, the products on top. So it is. Needless to say, there's a cost efficiency on building that, so then you can scale things up, especially big corporations with big portfolios, and that's something that I'm going to show to you. Right? For Philips and ZEISS and Adecco, it's pretty much very similar story. So this is a kind of small video that shows, from one single pixel, then you put 8 pixels together. So we call this the 8 rule pixel. Everything on the screen is multiplied by 8. So then it makes things highly consistent across the entire portfolio, right? So, and then we start kind of building big models and then applying this over and over again. So then we don't need to redesign every new product or new feature. We don't start from scratch. We always have something as a baseline, as a reference. I'm completely lost on time, right? Because I have a full screen here. And Daniela, if you could let me know, how long does it take? If I still have some time, or how, or at least 2 or 3 minutes before the time. So please let me know.
Yes, you can. You have more time, so if you want to continue,
that's great.
And yes, and for our portal, for our participants, please send us your questions on the chat, please.
Cool. Only tough questions, right? Good. Thank you. Some examples from systems that I've me and the team, of course, we built using that approach, the experience architecture for Philips. Over the 6 years that I was leading teams at Philips, we've used that experience architecture multiple times with multiple products. Designing for healthcare requires a a great deal of attention, right? So as you can imagine, right? So in the surgery theater, so the doctor sometimes are not even looking at the patient, but they're looking at some screen, right? So then every single pixel on the screen needs to have a purpose, right? So we have zero error tolerance, right? So then the precision or the application, the way that applications are built, it is really important to have a very strong, set of standards and guidelines, and the design system helps pretty much on building that up. So, and then making, and building a design system with kind of a really well balanced, the aesthetics and the technical elements. This is a tricky, tricky situation, right? Because you see a lot of products from big corporations out there that's highly consistent, but not necessarily it is a pleasured experience, right? So we always try to balance a little bit, the technical and the aesthetics all together. So here I have another good example. So it's the electronic magic record. So you can literally run the whole operational system of a hospital in a single piece of software, right? It is more than 40,000 screens altogether, using a bunch of 45 components, right? So all the components are reused over and over again. So then we can have a highly consistent experience from the receptionist to the pharmacy to the physicians. Every stakeholder within a hospital uses pretty much the same or very similar navigation system, a set of assets. So that's a product that we built and delivered back in 2017, and now it became the platform of platforms for Philips, right? So then Philips is kind of connecting other products on top of this product, just to give you an example how important the design system became for the entire Philips portfolio. When I was there, there was about 120 plus products altogether. Last week, I was talking to a former team member, and he was explaining that is more than 200 products already interconnected, and creating a huge healthcare portfolio. Let's move on. Some reason it's not moving on. Okay, good. Well, the Adecco Group, right? So it's been a year, as I mentioned. So and what brought me to Adecco, it was pretty much this slide here. So Adecco is the second biggest human resource company in the world. So and it's 67 different countries, 33,000 employees, and managing HR, clients, portfolio across the globe, right? But then 2020, as we all know, so the pandemic hits, and then all the HR were calling the specialists, the HR specialists, which is Adecco, and asking us how can I drive the change, the HR change, with this new normal, and then the new challenge of building teams and retain talents. And while the industry, it was pretty much a huge challenge for them. HR specialists to come up with a new strategy for that, and then the CEO managed to come up with a new strategy, which is called the future of work. And then, to my pleasure, surprise, those three big fundamental pillars of that strategy, it is somehow related to design, right? So it is all about customer experience. It's all about differentiation, and the digital transformation, right? So, and then they've built a product development group and bringing all the products under the same governance. And over the last year, I've joined as VP of design with the main challenge of building a design team and a design system that can realize that strategy, right? So some of the elements, so those are the brands that belongs to the group. So Adecco and LHH are the most prominent brands. But recently Adecco acquired a technology solution company called Modis, and now it's called Acodis. It's been a huge partner for Formula One, and then providing technology and outsourcing for multiple companies. Just to give an example, so our main client, I think, is Amazon. So Amazon, every time that Amazon is building a new warehouse somewhere in the world, so they call Adecco, and we provide an entire HR backbone for those big companies. So of course, and we started with the why, right? So and the design principles before we start kind of pushing pixels or polishing pixels. And there was a great deal of discussing, you know, how we would build the bridge between the corporate strategy and the design strategy, and then we came up with those 4 big principles, right? And the principles are pretty much our North Star. It is what guides us forward. So the first one is the visual integrity. Of course, you're building a huge portfolio, and companies they build value by, you know, bringing their brands in a very harmonious way, right? So user-centric, needless to say. So if you're building something, you definitely should bring the user, you know, at the center of this this process. And the other two, the context is specific, is just because we are a corporation that kind of play in the different markets. And although the remote work, it is it's bringing lots of similarities regardless of the culture, but the cultural aspect is still playing a key role across the globe, right? So working remotely, we definitely have to understand, you know, the local elements, the local culture, and even kind of the local regulations and laws. So how are we going to build products by bringing, you know, the context as part of the whole mix. And the system, it's because I believe that design system is it should be perceived as a product, right? It's not just a group of assets that you build products, but it's also our internal product. In that case, it's not only internal anymore. So we've been offering to some of our clients to use our design system, and then they can build their own products. So pretty much like you probably remember Intel Inside, right? So whatever computer that you'd buy. So in the past, you had Intel Inside. So with Adecco, we build a design system that is being used now for big companies like Amazon and Uber. So they building their applications using our system, but with their look and feel, which is quite an interesting approach for that. So we, after 10 months, we managed to put things together, and then we created what we call the TAG DS. TAG is the short from the Adecco Group. And then it is a group of 100 plus components. So it's a huge design system with very strong and consistent approach. So the same group of components, we can just a couple of clicks, we can change the colors, the shape, and so we have the full control. I mean, the design team has the full control over all the elements on the front end. So then we can build and change things in a very in an automated way. So it's quite a very mature system. And then one of the reasons the maturity comes also with the usability and especially the accessibility, right? So it's again, the user centricity approach. This is pretty much how we approach the user centricity. Accessibility It's a key topic, right? So we have about 10% of the world population with some kind of disability, and then we do have to provide products that can be highly inclusive, right? So and then we build a usability measurement score. So then every product we run the measurement system before and after we build it. So then we see clearly the improvements along the product development cycle. So this is pretty much of course, a slice of the portfolio just to show and prove the point of the consistency. As you can see here, the little card on the red screen with the 32, the number 32, and on your left, the green with the same 32. That's exactly the same group of assets, the same coded elements. But it displays on the screen with different colors and different shape. But then that's the same group of code, which makes things highly reusable, right? So then you can we can build some products, with a small set of components with different purposes, different markets, and different even brands and colors. So that's how things work over there. Anyway, so another key element, which is kind of across all the stories that I'm telling you, it is the digital design thinking as I put together, right? So it's kind of interesting to see how again theory and practice comes together. So to me, a very basic definition what design thinking is all about, or the digital design thinking is all about, or the digital thinking is all about, it is essentially used to explore challenge using creative and rational thinking in a more holistic way, right? So not only solving problems, right? So, but then looking for opportunities. To me, that the last part is the key element on the design practice, right? So we usually designers they've been called to sort out problems, right? But then I think that we should use our mindset, our approach, our tools and practice and everything in the pursuit of new opportunities, right? So this is again I saw lots of different definitions for design thinking, and I've put it up back in the days, but it's still kind of a valid one. And then, although I'm a little bit skeptical about design thinking frameworks, right? So it should be framework between brackets here. So to me, those three elements for design thinking, it's still super valid, right? So you have to challenge dogmas, you have to deconstruct ideas and build and rebuild ideas in a more let's say interesting associations or association of ideas. So if we manage to challenge, to deconstruct, and to reconstruct, that's perhaps the best way. Or anyway, so that's the way that it's been working for me and the teams that I've been leading so far. Well, lessons learned. I have a couple of slides on that one, but I think this represents pretty much, a very short a group of elements, right? You might remember those criteria: people, process, content, and context. Lessons learned from the last 20 years is that, well, you definitely need to bring people first, right? And the rest will follow, right? So you definitely need to take care of your team, your internal team, and make sure that whatever the structure or the governance that you are embedded in. So people should always come first on the process, on the decision making. And again, it's not only a user-centric from the gates outwards, but then it is should be one of the principles that we use as part of the team building. Process, it's interesting to me, regardless the process, it can be agile, it can be waterfall. To be honest, both can work quite well. But what a key element for a process to be highly functional is the discipline, right? And then there's this philosopher, Brazilian philosopher, that said once, discipline is freedom, right? So as soon as you manage to get a little bit of discipline of your practice, then you free up your mind, you free up your time. So then so it is all about, you know, bringing a little bit of discipline to your process, whatever process you have it there, right? So discipline is a key element when building things. Content. This is also, I stole this quote from, I cannot remember the author now, but if not excellence, what, right? So the same amount of energy, time that you use to build shit things, you use the same amount to build great stuff, right? So there's this misconception that time, quality comes only with time. Not necessarily, right? So sometimes, as I mentioned, so you can build the best in class, building excellence with whatever time that you have, right? It's pretty much a little bit of mindset more than a practice. And the context, again, the pandemic brought us not to our knees, but to our, I think, the most extreme point of reflection on how we interact with each other, right? Embracing ambiguity, embracing the difference. It is something that it should come as a baseline for any designers, but it is always good to remind ourselves that we live in a world that we have 7 billion human beings, and you have 7 billion different possibilities, and the uniqueness of being a human requires us to deal with ambiguity in every single opportunity. So rather than fight against, I'm always saying, well, let's embrace the difference, embrace the differences and ambiguity. I do have another 2 or 3 slides, just kind of part of the lessons learned, or perhaps the message, the future. To me, good design, right? So how can we define good design? I think Dieter Ham's put more than 40 years ago, he put together, the 10 elements of good design. I don't want to challenge that, but then to me, the good design results from our ability to observe patterns. Nature is out there and full of patterns. So sometimes we are looking for solutions that is just under our nose, right? So as a good designer, or as a designer, you definitely have to looking for patterns that you're probably going to find the solutions to whatever challenge that you have. The other thing, I see the role of designers as a curators of the future, right? So again, connecting the dots, connecting elements that is just in front of us, it helps us to figure out solutions, right? So this is an exercise a project that we just delivered for a company in Brazil, with the biggest brewer in the world. So we've built a multiple user journey from different parts of the production line, and then we start kind of combine all the elements of different journeys. Kind of sometimes curating information, it is already a good way to move forward and build the future. And last but not least, beauty. Beauty is a promise of happiness. Again, I stole this quote from Alain de Botton, so the philosopher. So as we are moving into the highly systematic, complex words, sometimes we forget, the beauty. It is something that it's on our responsibility to build a world that is not only highly functional, but we do need to build something as a promise of happiness, and this is pretty much also on the design side. And you might remember the 5,000 days, or the 10,000 days, or more precise 11,315 days. So I would conclude my my presentation with this question, right? So as designers moving forward, so my question to you: what's going to happen in the next 11,000 days, right? So it is on us now to not only deal with what society or the world throw at us, building things, but realizing our desirable future. It's pretty much on us, right? So it is on the designer's role on provoke and to imagine and to build that future. And I would love to hear, your thoughts, your ideas, and definitely your questions. And let's keep the conversation ongoing. So that's all for today. I probably, as I mentioned, I've got no time reference here around me. So, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions or comments that you might have.
Hi, Kleber. I just sent you some questions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let me check. Yeah, it's here on the chat, right? Oh, okay. Oh, Tim Berners-Lee. Thanks, Nasif. Yeah, now I remember. Tim Berners-Lee is the guy who invented the World Wide Web, right? So please, he's still around. He's still a very provocative thinker. And it's crazy to think that the guy who created the World Wide Web is still with us, right? So it's not that long ago, and he's been heavily involved in the discussions on the Web3 and how and his view the web shouldn't belong to corporations, should be an open environment and so on. But please make sure that you follow, Tim Berners-Lee. He's still out there sharing his love. On the uncopyable values concept, what tools or methodology would you suggest for finding that unique value proposition that most relevant for user clients? That's it's quite interesting because we've every new concept, every new project, we have this as a common practice to build our own tools, right? So we usually say, wow, that's a design research. Yes, that's as a practice, it is a design research, but every new challenge comes with a new set of tools, right? So sometimes we combined qualitative approach, all sorts of qualitative, from interviews to co-creation or any other. But lately I've been combining quantity and quality, right? So sometimes building the hypothesis with the qualitative approach and validating or challenging the hypothesis with the quantitative, and the other way around, right? So data is it is one of the most important assets for the companies, and yeah. So my recommendation, suggestion, it's always to balance the quantity and quality approach, and don't, even if I tell you that, for example, for Philips we use that set of tools or methodologies, or for now Adecco we've been using, but every new challenge we've reorganized the methodologies to make sure that it works for that challenge specifically. It is quite time consuming. We always crack our brains to make sure that the methodology would work right. So then prototyping, even the design research is really important before we go out there. So yeah, the combination quantity and quality is still my preferred way. What metrics do you use for measuring the success of your digital design projects? That's a good one. depends. I know that's not a good answer, right? But then big companies, they are in love of NPS, right? Which pretty much, you know, a system that you probably have noticed in some digital products. You've been asked to access between 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, you know, or 5 stars. So that recommendation. My point is that usually people are so pissed off with another thing that they have to interact, they put whatever stars or numbers out there. So don't rely on NPS, right? So the way that we've been measuring, right? So it is through the usability measuring system, and then we combined the user, the expert review. So we do have usability experts on our team. So it is, of course, time consuming. It relies on one person knowledge. And now we haven't yet implemented, but we've been testing a platform called usertesting.com. So then we can make things more scalable. We can do some A/B testing. We can have a group of people already assigned to some challenge, different markets, different countries or cultures. That is a scalable way of measuring things on the digital products. But again, it lacks a little bit of the context, right? So I'm not 100% convinced that scaling the measurement system would bring, you know, the right feedbacks for us to improve the project. So we still kind of, you know, every day, now and then, there's new metrics out there. But again, so that's why we build here this metric here, which is the usability measurement system somewhere. Oh, I think I took that out. No, yeah, that's the measurement system, right? So, and there's that was again we. Oh, there's no reference here, but I do have the author of, because of course we trick and then we bring this into our context, but I can share later on the book that, you know, inspire us to, you know, improve our measurement system on that one. I'll share this later. Question from Nassif. Thanks for the super, oh, thank you. Oh, that's super cool. In the context of design interface for usability, what do you think of the argument that widespread predominance of user-centric design and user-established patterns of usability is making the World Wide Web very uniform? Now, well, do we have time to discuss that? Because that was one of my preferred topics, right? So do you believe this is happening? And if so, do you think it is positive, making the web more accessible to all, or negative? Yeah, that's a good one, right? So I usually say that if you go and check your bank website and your bakery website, you're gonna be interacting with very similar sets of assets, right? So you're gonna find the hamburger menu, you're gonna see the menu on top, you know, the hero, the big card. So in other words, the web, it is super, well, it's not exciting anymore, right? So everybody's using design systems and making things highly consistent. So, and then very soon, I think we already living in a very boring moment for the web. So there's very little thing that excites out there, right? So, and then we are pretty much missing the opportunity of bringing something fairly new, right? So on the other hand, we do have the topic of accessibility, right? So there's a consortium of companies that defines what are the standards for accessibility. As I mentioned, so we've been very close to this group and then having a conversation, because if everybody applies the accessibility guidelines, so we're gonna have I say, a very similar way of interacting with digital products across the web, right? So this is a quite interesting topic, because it will require a massive, exploration, visual exploration from the designers on how to build unique interactions. So there's some good examples out there, but again, remember the copyable thing. So as soon as you see something cool out there, there are tons of people copying, right? So keeping the relevance on building things that it is unique out there, it is perhaps one of the biggest challenge on the web right now. So I don't know if I can answer that, if it's a positive or negative. I don't know. I would love to hear also your opinions, because I've been challenging, designers all over the world and with simple questions of what is unique out there. So can you point it out some very unique and good interactive products on the web? So it is really hard, right? As I mentioned, the bakery and the bank, they use the same group of components to sell bread or sell money. So it's a good challenge. But yeah, thanks for the question. That's a good one. I think I've read all of them. I don't know if did I miss anything, or is there any other comments?
No, I think that's all. So thank you, Kleber, for your time and your amazing presentation. Hope to see you soon. And bueno, muchas gracias a todos los participantes que se conectaron el día de hoy a esta conferencia de señales con Kleber Puchaski. Los esperamos en nuestra próxima conferencia de señales, que será el 21 de septiembre con Juan José La Huerta.